Hi everyone, my name's Candice Spence. I'm GM of Marketing at the AFA, and I'm delighted to introduce you to today's webinar entitled Discover the Human Side of Technology, brought to you in partnership with NetWealth. Today you're going to hear from Rachel Colligan, who is Distribution Manager at NetWealth. Now, Rachel, who's based in Sydney, has over 12 years' experience in the financial services industry and has worked in roles across advice, insurance, and retail banking before joining NetWealth in 2017. With the knowledge of these different industry perspectives, Rachel has a passion for delivering better business and client outcomes using NetWealth's award-winning platform. In today's webinar, Rachel will provide insights into the role of AdviceTech by looking at the human side of technology through the lens of staff. This session uncovers the opportunities and challenges of remote working and what staff expect from technology and management. Rachel will also investigate the client experience and 8 important customer tech trends that matter to advice firms, helping advisors understand the role of hybrid client communications, the shift to self-service digital tools, how to unlock opportunities with data, and discover the importance of data visualization in client education. This webinar will run in an interactive way with Q&A throughout. Before we begin, just the usual housekeeping. Today's webinar has 1 CPD hour available, and we'll send out details of this within the next week. We'll also answer questions at the end of this presentation, so please use the Zoom QA feature rather than the chat feature, as you can see in the diagram on the slide. Now let's kick off. Rachel, thanks so much for putting this relevant information together to help our members. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Candice. Thank you everyone as well for joining me this afternoon. As Candice mentioned, my name is Rachel Colligan. I am a distribution manager here at NetWealth. I've been with NetWealth for just shy of 6 years now, and previous to that, about 13 years in total in financial services. Importantly, about 5 years of that were actually spent as a client services officer within an advisory office, so just prior to joining NetWealth. So today's presentation actually lands quite close to home for me. It is, I have been on your side of the fence, so I do understand how these sorts of trends impact you, your clients, and your staff. So there are really 3 key things that I wanted to cover off on today. The first thing being how tech impacts your staff satisfaction, the best way to digitize your client experience, and also to cover off on a couple of real life examples that you may be able to implement within your practice that can really add value to your day-to-day. So before we get started, as always, there is a quick disclaimer slide here. Now, I can't promise that there's nothing here that doesn't sell your soul to me forever. However, who reads the T's and C's? So let's get into it. Technology has reshaped the customer journey in almost every sector. Digital-first disruptors continue to enter new markets with radically new offers, forever changing how companies and consumers interact with one another. They set a high bar for things like simplicity, personalization, and interactivity. The internet removed friction from the buying process with online commerce. Think Amazon and eBay. We're all familiar with Uber and how they revolutionized not only the taxi industry, but the food delivery industry as well. The music industry in particular reinvented itself quite rapidly, from the short life of CDs to the even shorter life of mini CDs, if anyone here remembers those, to having an almost inexhaustible library of music available at your fingertips today through streaming services like Spotify. A little closer to home, we have companies like Raise, who revolutionized the savings process through automatic roundup, and Robinhood, who provide a mobile-first trading experience. The customer experience and what people expect from us has changed. No longer are you simply competing with the advice firm down the road. You're in competition with businesses like this every day. Remember, the last best experience that anyone has anywhere becomes the minimum expectation for the experience that they want everywhere. We can all agree that change is constant, right? If the past few years have shown us anything, it's just that the pace of change is only accelerating. Tech has never changed more rapidly, with things like greater computing power and more open standards. Whilst tech has simplified so many parts of our lives, it's also added complexity, right? Often when we think about tech, the words that come to mind are productivity, efficiency, and scale. But if we take a step back for a moment and think about the impact that tech has in our broader lives and just the general pervasiveness of it in almost everything that we do. Think social media, our attachment to our mobile phones. Even a simple stroll on a sunny day now often includes a smartwatch tracking your every step. Technology has touched our lives in a very human way. It affects us from joy to frustration to everything in between. It impacts our relationships with friends, with family, and even with ourselves to a certain extent. Netwell's 2022 AdviceTech report had a little bit of a different focus last year. Rather than simply looking at what tech was used and by whom, we've paid special attention to the role that tech plays in our everyday lives, or as we like to call it, the human side of technology. So before we dive in, a very quick explanation. You'll hear me refer to AdviceTech stars quite a bit today. AdviceTech stars are practices that we use as a benchmark. So we ranked practices on measures like FUA to active clients, length of business tenure, etc. Stars are practices that use the right advice tech in the right way to generate tangible business benefits. For example, we can see here that stars have had greater profitability, with 40% having profitability of over 25% compared to 28% of the industry overall. They spend more on tech as a percentage of their revenue as well. This has enabled them to scale their businesses effectively. They service more clients and arguably more complex clients, with 44% having an average client portfolio of over $1 million. They also employ more staff. So you can see here that 40% have more than 10 advisors and 51% have more than 10 support staff. So the first part of this report, and as I mentioned before, we're focusing on the human side of technology today, considers the role of tech and how it impacts your staff satisfaction. If you think about the tech that you use in your day-to-day life, you're probably using a CRM. You may be using a platform like Netwealth. You're generating documents in Word. You're chatting with your colleagues on Teams. You're Zooming with clients. You're in Excel spreadsheets. You're posting to social media. It's a bit exhausting, right? So I'd like to ask you just to take a moment to think. In your general day-to-day, how many different pieces of technology do you think you use? 0 to 5, maybe 5 to 10, 10 to 12? Well, what we found through our research was that most advice firms actually use on average 14 different pieces of tech every single day. And AdviceTech stars are using 17. That's a lot, right? That is personally way more than I thought. So when you think about your staff satisfaction, are you really considering the role that these 14 or 17 pieces of disparate technology actually play in your staff's happiness? Are they really helping your staff to hit goals, or do they create friction and maybe even a bit of frustration? Stars recognize the relationship between tech and staff satisfaction, and also their role in enhancing that relationship. Almost 9 in 10 say that their business is responsible for fostering a healthy working relationship with tech, and a further 9 in 10 recognize that an integrated tech stack improves staff satisfaction. Almost 8 in 10 stars note that good tech leads to improved teamwork and collaboration, plus happier and more engaged staff. And 6 in 10 agree that it helps them not only recruit, but to also retain top talent. It also improves their employee well-being and enhances their staff culture. So really important, right? What was quite interesting though, was only 13% of those firms surveyed said that their staff was very satisfied with their business technology. It's a big disconnect. So thinking about your practice, how do you fix this? There are 4 key areas that you can focus on within your business. The first of this is by supporting flexible working arrangements with the right tech and the right IT support. The second is to consider simplifying your tech stack with either better, newer, or maybe even just less technology. The third is by around providing better training and onboarding of your staff. So making sure that they are equipped to use the tools that they need to use in an effective manner. And lastly, by using dedicated workforce tech for collaboration, HR, and culture. First and foremost, and I think I'm kind of stating the obvious here, but there's been a massive shift towards working from home. In fact, 9 in 10 stars allow their staff to work from home or remotely. Now, that's not to say that it's all the time. In fact, the average is about most people spending about 2 days working from home per week. In fact, you're joining me all today via a webinar, so I dare say there would be quite a few on the call today who are working from home, right? So think about when you do work from home, if that is something that you do. It's a heavily tech-reliant experience, right? It's the laptop you use, it's your internet speed connection, it's your ability to access important documents and files and to connect with your colleagues and with your clients. So with that in mind, for those of us with staff working from home, it's really important to ask yourself how you can best support them. What we found through our survey was that the support that AdviceTech stars provided to their staff was on average a little bit better. Close to 9 in 10 stars provide access to important information and file with the appropriate software to do so. Again, stating the obvious, staff need access in order to do their job. They also go a little bit further. 51% will provide additional equipment such as desks and chairs to their staff. 4 in 10 provide security support such as VPNs and antivirus software, with almost 1/3 providing a mobile phone or an internet allowance, and 16% actually providing an additional tech monetary allowance. They're also supporting their staff with a help desk. So 9 in 10 stars do this in-house at the moment. With that in mind, there's still quite a bit to improve on in this area, even for staffs. So again, of those surveyed, only 50% said that their staff was happy with their IT help desk support. When you think about it, it's important to consider that, generally speaking, your IT help desk is trying to help your staff remotely. So there's the tyranny of distance, right? How accessible is your IT help desk? This plays a huge part in not only the satisfaction of your staff, but in their productivity as well. No one wants to spend half the morning unable to work because they just can't get their tech to work. So before we saw that 9 in 10 agreed that an integrated tech stack improved staff satisfaction. However, only 1 in 10 businesses say that they have a highly integrated system of technology. So there's a bit of a theme here today, right? Between what we say we want and what we say we actually have. Bit of a disconnect again. Staff frustration and friction is often caused by the double handling of data and having to re-enter the same data into a number of disparate systems. With advice firms relying on between 14 and 17 different pieces of tech every single day, it's no wonder that is a hell of a lot of duplication. Again, speaking from personal experience, it is a really frustrating thing to have to do. So how do you address that? How do you fix that problem? Well, the most obvious thing is to simply use fewer systems, right? So get rid of those older systems that don't integrate well or don't play nicely with the rest of your ecosystem. You can also integrate your systems. So those existing systems that you have, get them working better together. Consider using tools that specialize in integration, which we'll touch on a little bit more later. You can even consider upgrading to more modern systems that are easier to use, faster, and have better feature sets. So you have a couple of options here. Identifying the right tech, though, is only the first step. The very best intentions can be easily derailed if your staff are not adequately trained to use that technology effectively. Only 1/3 of staff surveyed considered themselves masters of the software that they use every day. That means potentially a massively 66% of your staff don't believe they have mastered the tools that they need to use in order to get their work done. Only half of the staff surveyed said that they got appropriate training on new software or on product upgrades. So there's a real chance here to make a difference within your business. Firstly, provide more hands-on training. Staff-led training in particular is incredibly powerful. I always say that you don't know how to do something yourself until you have to show someone else how to do it. Have a robust induction program. It really helps to map this out and break it down into smaller steps rather than trying to teach everything on the fly. Empower your staff to self-learn with self-service tools. Think things like how-to videos, FAQs, and knowledge centers. Give them time in their day to learn as well. It's very easy to get caught up in the BAU, right? So make sure your staff have the time to actually go in and explore the tech that they use every day. And as mentioned before, provide ongoing support to them via a dedicated help desk. There's no doubt that tech has an important role to play in managing, bringing together and connecting your staff. Dedicated workforce tools, or traditional dedicated workforce tools, span from internal task and project management software like Asana, internal communication tools like Microsoft Teams, and professional development tools like Kaplan. However, there are three really key areas in AdviceTech that stars have lent into. These are people management, staff knowledge sharing, and staff surveys. I want to take you through three real-life examples of providers who really lead the charge in each of these spaces. So of the people management software providers, one that really stood out in our research as an up-and-coming was Employment Hero. So they aren't the only provider in this space. Traditional payroll specialists like Xero are still incredibly popular. However, companies like Employment Hero are starting to see more traction with advice firms, and we think that's probably because of their greater breadth and functionality. So not only do they provide a portal for your staff to see their pay and to manage their leave, they also provide access to additional features like education modules and even performance review modules. So by centralizing all of these things in one place, you really simplify the HR admin, which can otherwise be quite time-consuming. Next up is knowledge sharing tools. So Microsoft Teams, great example. A lot of businesses use Teams. In fact, we use Teams quite heavily here at NetWealth, but I'm not quite convinced that we're all using it to the best of its capability. So did you know that you can build interactive boards within Teams in order to track the progress of different projects? You can also create wikis as well. So if you're not familiar with what a wiki is, think Wikipedia, well-known website. I'm sure we've all used it at one point or another. Wikis are essentially online repositories that are designed for groups of people to store and share information in a simple and easy manner. So having that central and common repository of information not only makes it really easy for staff to access, but it also makes it incredibly efficient to update if need be. And lastly, surveys. So most of us want to love our job, right? I mean, we spend most of our waking hours at work. It's kind of unavoidable. SurveyMonkey is the most popular provider in this space. It comes preloaded with a range of really great templates that are easy to use and can be customized to suit your needs. The role of staff surveys really is to hear directly from your staff so you can understand them better. It's an invaluable way to keep your finger on the pulse, and if things aren't going so well, to really identify where the issues lie. Employee satisfaction is predicated on understanding just how many of your staff actually enjoy working for you. Are they happy with their day-to-day demands? Are they happy with their remuneration? I challenge you to stop guessing and to find out. So with 6 in 10 firms looking to hire new staff in the next 5 years, but a tightening employment market and less advisors coming through universities than ever before, it's more important than ever to use your tech not only as a way to retain your staff, but to attract new staff as well. And by the way, did I mention there's a flow-on effect to client satisfaction? 96% of stars surveyed believe that improved staff satisfaction led to improved client satisfaction. This is supported by other research, which suggests that happy staff equates to happy clients, and our research agrees. I think this quote from Howard Schultz, CEO of Starbucks, really encapsulates the point quite well. You can't expect your employees to exceed the expectations of your customers if you don't exceed the employees' expectations of management. Powerful. So lots of stats, but we are into the second half of the presentation here, so thank you for bearing with me. With all that in mind, I now want to turn our attention to the role that technology plays in your client experience. So increasingly, the factor that most determines the success or failure of technology is not necessarily how good or clever that technology is, right? it's how effortless the user experience is. And to really deliver on that user experience, you need to first understand who your target market is. There are two really key parts of the Australian market that we believe represent a significant opportunity for advice businesses. These are the established affluent and the emerging affluent. So these two groups, they represent only 26% of the Australian population. However, they control a staggering 60% of all household wealth. It's huge numbers. 4 in 10 are already advised, and a further 20% are considering seeking advice. Your established affluent are on average about 60 years of age, and your emerging affluent, i.e. your millennials, hello, are about 33 years of age. What's really important though is that for these two groups, regardless of their age, they both consider themselves tech literate. And this is clearly demonstrated through their digital activities. So look, I know there's a lot of stats on this slide, but what this is really trying to show you is that both of these groups are much more likely than the Australian average to engage with and frequently use digital tools. And look, when we look at how they manage their wealth, we definitely see the same trends applying. Emerging affluents in particular place a lot of importance on being able to manage their cash flow and budgeting digitally. In fact, we actually see quite a bit of divergence between the groups here. As a millennial myself, though, I do strongly agree with that. I much prefer the convenience of being able to do it myself. So therefore, it's really not surprising, right, that around 70% of all affluent clients say that the digital and technological capabilities of an advice firm are incredibly important to them when they are selecting a financial advisor. And as an industry, we do recognize this. So 3 in 4 stars will look to increase their investment in client engagement tech. The real question is though, where do you focus this investment? Where do you start? These are the 4 key areas that you can start with. These are the trends that we see in the client experience or human tech that you can benefit from. Now, the first strategy is around hybrid communication. So what we found through our research is that the demand for in-person versus virtual communication really shifts dependent on the stage of the customer journey. For those first few key interactions, there is a strong preference across all groups for real-life human interaction in the form of face-to-face meetings. As the relationship evolves and becomes more established, that human interaction, rather than being physical, it shifts to things like virtual meetings and phone calls. In terms of answering queries, document signing, it's about 50-50 at this point. You have those clients who do want to do it in person, but you also have those who prefer to do it digitally. Younger clients even preferred to use client portals. We actually see this growing, right? So we think that the use of client portals will increase as it becomes more available. But having said that, email is probably still the most popular way of communicating at this point. When it comes to information on new products or services or the sharing of news and insights, education, etc., this is where we really start to see digital overtaking that in-person interaction. Email is still the #1 channel, but your younger clients are perfectly happy to receive this information via a social media update. And finally, for tracking wealth and monitoring the progress towards goals, around 8 in 10 prefer to do this digitally, and that's typically via a client portal. So again, lots of stats. That's great. What do you actually do with this information? It's a great question. Let me show you. First and foremost, you really need to focus on having a multi-mode hybrid communication style. This really starts with online meeting technology. Usage of this tech was largely driven by lockdowns, but I think we can agree that it's all here to stay, right? Zoom remains the most popular provider, hence we are connecting on this today. However, we have seen a notable trend towards Teams. In fact, the figures that you see here are the difference between our 2021 and our 2022 report. The next step in embracing hybrid communication is to look at your email marketing system. So we saw that that's still quite a popular channel with most clients, especially in those more mature relationships as well. Now, what we see here is that about 2/3 of advice firms and 90% of stars use email marketing systems to communicate not only with their existing clients, but with prospective clients as well. Close to 10% are sending email campaigns and newsletters weekly, with around 44% sending those on a monthly or quarterly basis as well. The majority are using MailChimp. However, there's still a fair chunk of us that are using both Iris and Outlook as a solution in this space. Now, to be clear, this is not a plug for MailChimp. However, MailChimp is a really great example of sophisticated email marketing technology. MailChimp gives you the ability to create customer engagement journeys. So think a welcome email that's generated when a client signs an authority to proceed, for example. Has anyone else ever done a little bit of online shopping, added a million items to cart, not bought anything, but then got an email a couple of days later saying, hey, I think you forgot something, here's 10% off? I know I'm a real sucker for those sorts of things, but again, that's just a great example of a customer engagement journey. MailChimp gives you the ability, so not only do they give you the ability to do all of that, but they also give you the ability to really analyze your marketing performance as well. So you can see what emails are being opened, you can see what links are being clicked on. What better way to really understand what content it is that's actually engaging your clients? Another way of marketing to clients, I should say, is via your social media channels. So stars have really embraced social media, and since last year, the proportion of those firms posting daily has more than doubled. At the same time, the proportion posting monthly did decrease a little bit, fair enough. LinkedIn remains the most preferred platform, although it's not necessarily the most popular social media platform per se. If you think about it, LinkedIn consists primarily of professionals, right? So a natural target market for any advice firm. There's really been a significant decrease in those firms using Facebook and Instagram though. But at the same time, we've noticed a big jump in the use of video to get messages out. So you can see there that YouTube has ticked up from 9% to 26%. Now, not at all related to our research, but I do wonder how the rise of the finfluencer actually influenced that number there. I think it probably has a bit to do with it. Now, managing your social media can be time consuming, right? And it can result in significant overheads to your business. So a lot of firms are turning to things like social media management technology to try and decrease the burden that this places on their business day to day. So what is social media management tech? It's a little bit of a tongue twister is what it is. But effectively, it's software that allows you to manage posts across multiple platforms from a single source and to also schedule those posts as well. So again, just taking a bit of that legwork out. Interestingly though, about a quarter of all actually just simply outsource the management of their social media altogether. So again, if this isn't something that you want to do in-house, you absolutely have that as an opportunity. We've spoken a lot about the modes of communication, but I think another thing that's really important to consider is the content of those communications. Written articles are by far and above the most popular type of content. As we noted, videos are trending, especially amongst AdviceTech stars. Webinars and case studies or success stories are also incredibly important. You know, webinars like today's webinar again are a fantastic way to share educational content in an engaging manner with your clients. And those success stories are just such a really powerful way to humanize the benefits of your advice. You know, again, both great things to really help foster your client advocacy. Again, email is the main choice for the delivery of most of this content, but we do see a good spread across other channels. And like I mentioned before, remember, this is about hybrid communication, right? Let's not forget that. Don't be afraid to distribute your content in different ways and to reuse it in different mediums. So there's absolutely no reason why that written article can't be the basis for a podcast or a webinar, or maybe used as inspiration for a video, or even just turned into an infographic. The key here is to produce your content once, but to publish it often, right? So get the most out of what you're doing. The second key focus is around empowering clients to self-serve. So think about how we used to queue up to buy concert tickets, right? We now just do that online. Rather than calling service providers for help with different things, most of us will simply just scour an internet forum looking for an answer. The more adventurous amongst us, rather than calling a tradie, might just attempt to watch a DIY YouTube video with personally very varied results. And who here amongst us hasn't consulted trusty Dr. Google at least once or twice? Technology has empowered us to do more things more quickly and more conveniently, and importantly, on our own terms. So it's incredibly important to recognize this do-it-myself attitude amongst your clients and provide them with ways for them to serve themselves at the times and in the places that best suits them. One of the best ways that you can do this is via a dedicated client portal. Whilst less than half of all stars do this today, 75% expect to offer a client portal within the next 2 years. A client portal can take a lot of different forms, right? It's really hard to know where to start. It really does depend on what your clients want. So we asked them for you. So when speaking with both the established affluent and the emerging affluent, we found that in most instances, their wants were actually incredibly similar, which is fantastic news. It means that you can meet the needs of two very important segments of the market with almost exactly the same feature set. So we can see here being able to view a total household balance sheet, being able to approve or sign financial documents, being able to access, we spoke earlier about being able to access news and insights on the go, being able to track your spending and budgeting. All of these things are quite important to both groups. What was really interesting though, was when we looked at what clients want versus what existing client portals actually offer, which are the gray boxes that you see here. Again, there is a huge disconnect, right? Clients are saying they want one thing and we're almost delivering none of them. So how do you fix that? I won't sugarcoat it. If you are considering building your own client portal, it is a massive undertaking. In all honesty, I would say that most of us wouldn't have the resources available to be able to do this from scratch. So rather than doing it yourself, I highly encourage you to leverage off the suppliers around you who've already done the hard work. Look for those key things that clients flagged as important to them. So being able to view their whole of wealth, their daily business and financial use, being able to action simple tasks easily. Again, speaking from experience, I get most of my personal admin done on the train into work each morning. So I need something that can fit in my pocket. Now, not only does Netwealth's client portal allow you to do all of these things and more, we also give you the ability to white label this, effectively making our tech yours. So again, a really important consideration, look for those providers around you who can help you in this space. You're not alone. I'm going to change gears a little bit now. Let's chat about Macca's. So McDonald's is a traditional brick and mortar business. Now, whether you like the burgers or not, they are the world's largest restaurant chain. They sell an amazing 75 burgers per second, which is probably about the same speed at which my husband eats them. Now, they've done this and they've achieved this through an ability to deliver a consistent and reliable back office process. Early on, they optimized by investing in a new kind of spatula, a new dispenser that squirted the same amount of ketchup and mustard each time, and a rotating platform to speed up the assembly of their burgers. So what McDonald's really shows us is that a consistent back office process is critical to delivering a great client experience. For them, excellence in customer experience has largely been a practice in process optimization. So what does that have to do? What does Macca's have to do with what we're talking about here today? As we grapple to lower costs and become more efficient, we need to find ways to automate those repeatable tasks that chew up our time. Now, managed accounts deliver not only on the promise of improved efficiency for you, but for many clients, they also add a level of consistency and reliability to investment advice. It's about taking the core of what you do and making that reliable and scalable, which then gives you more time to focus on those outliers that really actually add value to your clients. And that's important, right? So I think a lot of the discourse around managed accounts to date has really been focused on the benefits to advisors, but there are real benefits to clients here as well. This was really apparent to us during the beginning of the pandemic in March 2020. So when the all odds dipped below 5,000 points, we processed a staggering 42,626 trades in a single day. Interestingly, 70% of those trades were buys as managers looked to take advantage of the market. Now, to really put that in perspective, if we look at the entirety of February, so the whole month before, we only processed 2,000 trades for the whole month. So it's just massive volumes, completely different to what we were used to. But what this shows us is that those clients in a managed account received consistent treatment. They were all able to participate and to potentially benefit rather than just a select few. All clients are treated equally, regardless of the size of their investment. It's always something I think about, right? If something was to happen tomorrow, where do you start? Is it your largest client? Is it your highest value client? Is it the squeaky wheel client? It's a really important thing to consider. Now, the final focus I wanted to talk to you about today is the importance of data and how data can impact your client experience. So if you think about data in the context of financial advice, right, we collect so much information about our clients, more today than we ever have before. Not only their personal data, but their comprehensive financial information, sometimes their sensitive health information. It's just incredible. We work in a really privileged and trusted position with clients. That means we are privy to some of their most secrets, some of this most private information. I've always said that anyone working as a financial advisor probably could do a pretty decent job moonlighting as a marriage counselor. So considering all that data you have on your clients, right? There are savvy businesses out there, not just financial planning businesses, right? So just savvy businesses in general that are finding novel ways to take advantage of that data to help them better engage with and understand their clients, to help personalize their customer experience, and also to remove friction from their customer experience as well. So I wanted to talk to you as well about a recent experience that I had as a consumer that really builds on this point. So I hadn't refinanced my mortgage in a rather long time. The first time I had done it, it was such an incredibly painful experience, to be completely honest with you. I had to run around to God knows how many different banks. I couldn't get everything that I needed online. Half the time, if I needed an interim statement, I had to go into a physical branch. One of my banks didn't have physical branches, so I had to request postal copies. It honestly took me about 3 months to get all the information that I needed together for my broker to take a look at my home loans. By the time I'd actually gotten him the last document, the first document I'd given him was now out of date. So of course I had to go back and get that again. So painful. So when it came time to refinance my mortgage again last year, I put it off. I put it off and I put it off and I put it off because I thought, you know what? I just don't have time for this. I'm busy. I've got lots of stuff on at work. I can't be running around to branches and out of the office, you know, spending hours, literally hours waiting in branches. Unbeknownst to me, from the last time I'd spoken to my broker to this time, he'd actually implemented some new tech. So when it came time to share my documents with him, all he said was, hey, Rach, log into this portal, plug in your internet banking credentials, and we'll just pull all the information through. What had taken me months and months previously, it took me all of 20 minutes this time around. So it's just powerful, right? Absolutely powerful how that can impact the way the client feels about the service that you're providing. I thought that was just amazing, so different. Now, the first step for a financial planning client, right? Usually a fact find. You might have had a website query or a general chat prior to this, but this is really where you start to see some depth in the information being collected. So fact-finding technology can make the process of collecting this information much easier and much less time-consuming for your clients, ultimately leading to a better client experience. So think about, again, my experience. I pose a question to you. How many of your clients are putting off engaging with you because they just don't have time to do it? I can guarantee you there would be a few. So we can see here that 60% of AdviceTech stars already use online fact find tech, but that's expected to increase to 91% over the next 2 years. Xplan, still the most commonly used tool, slightly ahead of the likes of AstuteWheel, MyProsperity, and Plutosoft, but not by much. The next step is to centralize that client data from your disparate systems using integration technology. So 31% of stars already use this type of tech, again, expected to increase to 78% over the next 2 years. And of those using integration tools, about 1/3 are using Xeppo. Again, we will talk about Xeppo a little bit later on. The final step is to surface this data in a meaningful way. So whether that is internally or externally. It's one thing to collect and to collate your data, but you also really need to think about what you're intending to do with it. So better client engagement is often about managing expectations, especially when markets are volatile or maybe your client goals just seem like they're a long way off. You know, it's, again, thinking back to what you intend to do with that data, right? How are you going to show this back to your client? Did you know that 90% of information transmitted to the brain is done so via visual cues? So hence the old adage, right? A picture speaks 1,000 words. So on the left-hand side here, we have a table, and on the right-hand side, we have a chart. Now, there's always going to be those clients out there who prefer a table, but for the vast majority of us, we learn visually, right? It's very important to be able to provide your clients with easily digestible information. So how do you use that to improve your client experience? Well, firstly, you can use modeling tools to show the what-if scenarios. So help your clients to really visualize your strategies. 3/4 of stars use these tools, with usage expected to increase from 65% in 2021 to 75% over the next few years. Again, Xplan is used by the lion's share. However, there's a few of us still using Excel spreadsheets, so that's a bit surprising as well. Presentation tools can also be a really incredibly powerful way to storytell. So Microsoft PowerPoint, used by about 71% of AdviceTech stars, still leads the charge here. However, we're starting to see increased usage of newer and funkier tools like Canva. And of course, most super and investment platforms, as well as many financial planning tools, also have rich reporting capabilities that allow you to create personalized reports for your clients. More advanced providers can even give you the ability to create report templates based on preset client personas, which again, not only provides a better reporting output, a better experience for your client, but again, it improves efficiency and it reduces the time that it takes you to generate this information for your clients as well. It's really important to embrace these data visualization tools to help you better communicate with your clients. Remember, keep them on the journey with you. Make the hypothetical realistic. So I spoke a little earlier around integration tools. So integration tools like Xeppo, for example. Now, one of the main reasons why we find providers like Xeppo so interesting is their ability not only to collect the data, but to normalize it into a common format. So what normalizing it allows you to do is then share it between your different systems. Sounds really deceptively simple on the surface, but being able to normalize that data really does take expertise supported by sophisticated tech. Through data normalization, you can establish a two-way connection between your core systems and your client experience systems. So not only does that remove the burden of data duplication from your staff, it also gives you the power to see a unified view of your clients, which completely revolutionizes the way in which you engage with them. Again, a really common scenario that I'm sure we've all had experience with, updating a client address. Very simple thing to do, right? However, in the back end, you're probably going into, gosh, a CRM, a marketing system, a platform, God knows how many other systems just to update this one piece of information. It's incredibly easy to accidentally overlook a single system. Or perhaps you may have shared an address with a provider and they've overlooked it or forgotten to action your request. Small thing, but again, a very poor client experience when a piece of important mail goes to an incorrect address. So using these data integration tools really gives you the ability to also go back and check your data validations, making sure that everything matches up and that you've got one client profile with all the same details rather than 15. What that also does is it allows you to potentially spot servicing gaps that you may not have been aware of otherwise. So again, very, very powerful. If we look to the future with predictive analytics and AI, the use of this data becomes the foundation for a lot more. The client and advisor experience through data will continue to evolve. So it's not only the way that you collect the data, the way you collate the data, and the way you display it, but it's also how you action it as well. So as you can see in this prototype, which uses Netwealth's own underlying client data, we can easily identify things like contribution limits that may have been met, asset class deviations, if a client has changed jobs or even perhaps stopped working. Having insights at your fingertips, so insights like these at your fingertips, gives you the power to take decisive and targeted actions. It gives you the ability to be truly proactive rather than reactive about those things that matter most to your clients. And so this brings us to an end. So we have gone through an absolute whirlwind of information today. So, like I mentioned, how tech can really impact your staff satisfaction, how you can digitize your client experience, some real life tools that you can use within your practice. So if you can take even one point away today to implement within your office, I think our time here will have been very well spent. For those interested in a deep dive on both the client and the staff experience, we have the reports available for download at the link that you see here across the top of your screen. We also have a really handy buyer's guide. So of course, there's 1,000,001 different pieces of tech out there that you could potentially use. This is a great example of what your peers are currently using. And for those of us who just aren't sure where to start, or if you're like me, you just need a little bit of a hand to get those creative juices flowing, we also have a downloadable workshop that you can use with your staff. So thank you very much. Happy to take some questions.
Thanks so much, Rachel. That was terrific. A lot of great stats and insights into, the adoption of technology, and usage, of not just young people, but, older people, which really over the last 5 years or more have really embraced technology. Look, if anyone has a question, please pop it into the Q&A at the right now. In the meantime, I've got a couple of questions I'd love to just throw your way, if that's okay. One thing, what would you suggest to our advisors, our practitioners, are key points to consider when adopting new tech into their business?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the key points to consider, and probably one, funnily enough, that gets overlooked, but having a real think around why it is, what problem it is that you're trying to solve by adopting that new piece of technology. I think one thing that we commonly see are these really, really bloated advice tech stacks. So, where somebody's come out with a nice new shiny feature, but you have to buy the whole system to get that one shiny new feature. So really think carefully about the problem it is that you're trying to solve. Don't add things just because they seem really whiz bang amazing on the outside. Another important thing as well is really to challenge your providers on having a trial run. Again, it's really easy to make a piece of tech look amazing on the surface, but you never really know how that piece of technology is going to interact with your business until you've had a chance to work through it yet. So always, always, always ask if there is a trial, a demo, or any sort of feature like that available. I think also, again, going back to the staff experience, asking your staff where their pain points are as well. I know I've personally been a little bit guilty in the past of, even though something was incredibly inefficient, just getting it done. So really explore those drivers. So what is it that has prompted you to look into this new piece of technology? I think it's really important to understand where you're starting from so that you know where you want to finish.
Yeah, fantastic. I think that was leading me to the whole staff question, because it's so important. I thought that was really relevant. The staff satisfaction really leads to the success of the business and to client satisfaction. So, what are the things there that you would, that these advisors can adopt or implement or change, in their businesses to improve that client satisfaction? Is it asking the question, as you said, and, being engaged with your staff in that manner?
Absolutely. I think it's so incredibly powerful. Having drawn on my own personal experience, and again, seeing the results of this survey was actually quite interesting, because I know personally that it was definitely the data duplication that used to drive me absolutely batty. Not only does it completely ruin staff satisfaction, unless you've got someone there who really loves data entry, although I think that's a small minority of us, it just becomes repetitive, right? It's not challenging for staff. It's not going to engage them. It doesn't help them to grow. It's just BAU. So I think if you can really start to address that duplication within your practice, that just makes such a huge difference. Not only that, but it opens the door for different risks as well. If you're handling the same piece of data 4, 5, or 6 times, how can you be confident that the data has been entered the same every single time as well? So not only is it a staff satisfaction question, but it's also potentially a compliance issue as well.
Yeah.
So
and reducing error.
Correct. And again, it impacts the client. If you've got a date of birth wrong somewhere, maybe you've got the month and the date mixed around. Again, it impacts your client experience. I think that data duplication as an industry, that is one thing we really have to work on getting out, because it adds nothing to anyone.
No, absolutely. Now, look, we don't have any questions from people, which means you've been so brilliant at the presentation, Rachel. And what we want to do is that research as well, and access to this presentation is going to be available on our website. But also, if people want access, we haven't placed actually the report up yet on our website, but what they can contact, it's available at your website at NetWealth. Is that correct, Rachel?
Spot on. So just www.netwealth.com.au/AdviceTech.
Terrific. Yeah, look, I just want to thank you so much for putting on that presentation. I really enjoyed listening to you. You've got a lovely presentation style. I enjoyed your humour in there. There were a few elements of great, humour in there. And look, I think it was very informative and helpful to our audience. So look, thanks again, and for spending the time to help us today. And also thanks to NetWealth. And we'll be sending out the CPD assessment for everybody, certificates, etc., in the next week. So any questions, please get in touch with either Rachel at NetWealth or our team at AFA. And thank you for joining us. Thanks again, Rachel, and have a great day, everyone.